We now have two different Suicide Squad movies on our hands. Of course, one from David Ayer, and more recently, one from James Gunn. And as we've talked about multiple times on the channel before James Gunn even got the job and got the gig and was hired to direct Suicide Squad 2, of course, now known as The Suicide Squad, this project was shopped to a bunch of other directors who all had their own individual ideas and visions for what this film could have been. And one of the most notable directors that we've talked about before is Gavin O'Connor. He was one of the ones that came closest to actually getting his vision brought to life and getting this job of Suicide Squad 2 until James Gunn got fired by Disney and Marvel and DC was like, hey, let's take him. So anyway, the big thing we've heard about Gavin O'Connor's Suicide Squad 2 is that the main premise and the big villain would have been Black Adam. We would have seen the Suicide Squad versus Black Adam, which would have been awesome. I did a video on this a couple months ago, and I talked about in that video how awesome that would have been. And it's just a really cool concept and idea. Although at the same time, let's be honest, Task Force X never would have stood a chance against Black Adam. I mean, he's just way too powerful a character, but also, again, still a cool idea. So that right there is the big thing we've heard about Gavin O'Connor's version for Suicide Squad 2. Until now, because now we actually have the full lineup of characters and DC villains that would have been a part of Task Force X in Gavin O'Connor's Suicide Squad 2. So let's go ahead and break this down and see what could have been with this film. Starting off with, of course, the obvious one, the returning characters. With Harley Quinn, of course they were going to bring her back. She was a fan favorite from the first film. She got her own spin-off movie, which really wasn't that widely liked, but, you know, still, makes sense that they'd bring her back. Same goes for Will Smith as Deadshot. He was amazing in that role, and of course this was actually the plan to bring him back for James Gunn's The Suicide Squad as well, but due to scheduling conflicts, he wasn't able to come back, so honestly, like, even if Gavin O'Connor did get to do Suicide Squad 2, he probably wouldn't have been able to bring back Deadshot anyway because, again, scheduling conflicts. So that still probably would have happened either way. But I do really hope that at some point in the future, we get to see Will Smith return as Deadshot because I really like him in that role and as that character, whether that's in another Suicide Squad movie, his own project, or, you know, something else in the future of the DCEU. Rick Flagg, oh boy, let's just hope that this version of the movie also would have made him a better character, because of course that was one of the best parts of the Suicide Squad from James Gunn, is just how they took this character of Colonel Rick Flagg from being just like a really bland, boring, just not good character, honestly kind of hated character from the first Suicide Squad film, to then in the Suicide Squad movie becoming one of the most beloved characters, and by the way, spoilers for the Suicide Squad if you haven't seen it already, to up until his death, just like his death just packed such a punch, and because you grew to actually love this character and you actually felt for him in that moment, and he was actually a cool character here. So I'm not sure if that same thing would have happened here, but I really hoped that would have factored into Gavin O'Connor's plan as well. But fortunately for you Rick Flagg fans, just like James Gunn planned, Gavin O'Connor was also going to kill off Rick Flagg. So yeah, that was the original plan. Rick Flagg was going to die in this version as well. So I guess he was doomed either way. But at least Boomerang is right there with him, because the same thing was happening with him. Oh man, I'm still upset about the death of Captain Boomerang from the Suicide Squad, especially because he was only in the movie for like 5 minutes. But Gavin O'Connor was going to do the same exact thing. So he was going to be bringing back Jai Courtney as Captain Boomerang. That's great and everything, but he was going to kill him off. And again, that's something I'm kind of sad about. Maybe he would have had a bigger role in the movie. We don't know for sure. But I really love Jai Courtney as Captain Boomerang, and I hope somehow, maybe like with Flash multiverse stuff, they can bring him back in the future. But yeah, makes sense they would have brought back Boomer as well for this version too. Then also Katana, a surprising one here I did not expect to see on the list, because you know, she was in the first movie. I don't really remember much from her. I mean, she didn't really do much, and honestly I don't really know why she was in the Suicide Squad in the first place, because from my knowledge, she never was in the comics, or at least like wasn't like a huge member, because, you know, she's not a villain. She was kind of a Rick Flag type character where she's just there to like keep the villains in line, and she honestly never really fit in with the Suicide Squad, if I'm being honest. But Yeah, so it would have been cool to see her back because I didn't really have any problems with her in the first Suicide Squad movie, but as long as they like developed her character more, that actually probably would have worked pretty well. Now on to some new characters that would have been introduced for Suicide Squad 2, like Ragdoll. This would have been a very interesting character. This is a character we saw in live action on the Flash TV series. And for those of you who don't know who Ragdoll is, he is basically, he's a contortionist, except with superpowers. So he can, like, stretch himself and, like, curl up into, like, little disturbing balls of ew. So definitely would have been an interesting character to see in this movie. I think he would have worked really well with the Suicide Squad, and also to see him on a big movie level budget, but unfortunately he was set to bite the dust as well, so there's another death on our list. Then we have KG Beast, which is an interesting one. For those who don't know KG Beast, he's basically like, he kind of looks like Bane. Like, he's got the big muscles of Bane, but he's also like an assassin, so like he's really good with guns and stuff. He's kind of like a mixture of like Bane and Deadshot. That's how I kind of like to think of him. And fun fact, we actually kind of saw him in the DCU with Batman v Superman. He was like the #1 henchman guy for Lex Luthor, but he died in that movie, so I'm not sure if they would have retconned that, if it would have been the same actor or somebody else. I don't really know for sure, but definitely would have liked to have seen KG Beast in the Suicide Squad. Then we've also got Phobia, a character I don't really know much about, but I feel like she would have filled a role similar to what Enchantress, I guess, should have been with the first movie, because, the first movie, Enchantress, of course, ended up being the villain of that, but, she had, like, the magical powers, so it would have been interesting to see a DC villain with these magical powers actually on the Suicide Squad team, and honestly, I feel like could have been a really, really powerful asset to Task Force X. Then we've got Black Spider, a character that was actually in one of the animated Suicide Squad films, which was Batman Assault on Arkham. Really good film, by the way. And this is another one I've really been wanting to see in live action for a Suicide Squad movie. And I think he would work really well. Would have liked to have seen him, and too bad we didn't see him in the Suicide Squad, but maybe we'll see him in Suicide Squad 3. Then we've also got Livewire. Oh man, Livewire. I love Livewire. She, of course, is a classic Superman villain. Honestly, one of my favorite Superman villains that I feel like doesn't really get enough credit. Like, again, like, she's a really cool villain, but like, you never see her or anything. And that's probably because like we haven't really had much superhero stuff. Superman stuff in the last couple years. Like, the Superman movies really went nowhere. I mean, we've got Superman Lois now and stuff like that. She did appear in live action on Supergirl. And that was like an okay version of the character. But I would love to see Livewire not only in the DCU, but I think she'd work really well with the Suicide Squad. I think that'd be a really interesting character. Again, a very powerful character with her electricity powers. But I think she would have been a really cool, aesthetically interesting character to add to the team, but unfortunately she was set to die as well, so yeah. And then Joker, Gavin O'Connor was planning to bring back Jared Leto's Joker just for a cameo. He wasn't going to be a member of the Suicide Squad or anything like that. Maybe it would just show him like in prison or something along those lines, but would have been cool because we didn't get anything from Joker in the Suicide Squad, but we didn't really need to either, so I'm not really exactly sure how that would have worked, but then again, would have been cool. So anyways, guys, let me know your thoughts in the comments below. What do you think about this lineup and roster for Task Force X in Gavin O'Connor's version of Suicide Squad 2? Which members would you like to have seen and would possibly like to see in the future of Suicide Squad films for the DCEU? So thanks so much for watching. Please drop a like if you enjoyed this video and hit the subscribe button so I can keep up to date on everything that goes on in the DC life.